My former partner, a 36-year-old woman, and I, a 36-year-old man, shared 2 children, a tween girl and a pretween boy, prior to our breakup 7 years back. I hold primary guardianship. She enjoys visitation rights that are occasionally monitored and at other times unrestricted. My ex suffers from mental health issues and struggles with properly caring for our children, explaining the current setup. The variation between supervised and unsupervised depends on custody assessments, and if I spot any concerning behavior, I can request a return to supervision earlier. Currently, her visits are without oversight. My ex tied the knot last year. Our kids have encountered her spouse and interacted with him during their mother's access periods. He's not a figure they're bonded to, and they lack the sort of connection where they'd seek more time with him. This topic arose because their mother inquired. To the children, he's simply the guy their mom resides with. Neither views him as part of their kin, and they avoid labeling him as their stepfather, something my ex noted and griped about through our shared parenting application previously. However, I've never attempted to alter my children's viewpoint since he's not a person they interact with frequently. Their mom isn't either. Starting from December last year, my ex's spouse has sought time with the kids roughly once or twice monthly. He'll message me expressing a desire to take them out for shopping, to a playground, or another location, asking if I'd approve of him having them for the afternoon. On 4 occasions when he made this request, he mentioned wanting to increase his involvement and foster a stronger bond with them in his role as stepfather. I've consistently declined due to how my kids describe their dynamic with him. I'm also not fully at ease with the concept. In my eyes, he's an unfamiliar individual, and I don't have much faith in my ex's choices. She has a poor history since her difficulties started, and I believe time with him wouldn't advantage my offspring. The most recent time he inquired and I refused. He replied by questioning the reason and accusing me of being spiteful and envious, insisting he ought to have permission to hang out with the kids. After all, he's now integrated into their caregiving team, even if his involvement is minimal. He further claimed he senses I've never offered him an opportunity to treat my kids well. I replied that I must prioritize my children's needs over others' emotions and desires. His comeback was that I ought to desire expanding my kids' family circle. Although he could have a valid argument, I'm unsure if he truly does. In my view, the dangers greatly surpass any possible advantages, but as I mentioned, I perceive no upsides. I envision it worsening if my ex and her husband's union dissolves or if he proves hazardous. I don't wish for my kids to bear that burden, and I'm aware of their sentiments toward him and the circumstances, but I'm seeking input here because perhaps I'm too immersed to determine if I'm mishandling his pleas. Am I being foolish? Not foolish at all. His ongoing pushiness is concerning. He's not a guardian. He's merely the person your unstable ex wedded. Their mother is barely part of the caregiving setup currently. Access and actual parenting differ greatly. What details do you have on him? Refusing to allow your children to spend time with an individual you barely know is wise. You're making the correct choice. Poster, have you thought about hiring a detective to run a background investigation on this man? Ensure he's not using an alias. It does occur. If he has another identity, both should be examined. Why incur that cost? The poster should keep denying and instruct this outsider to have his spouse, the poster's ex, seek court approval on his behalf. They dismiss it outright. They could conduct their own review, potentially leading to resumed supervised access for the ex if he's as suspect as we presume. He might be a truly decent individual with no ill intent. No truly decent person seeks solo access to children who aren't theirs. That's highly alarming. Poster, please revert your ex-wife to monitored visits and highlight the aggressive demands of her new spouse for unmonitored time with your children. There's absolutely no justification for a non-relative to demand that. Communication should solely involve you and your ex. This reeks of suspicion. A single error could be catastrophic. Last week, my children had an early dismissal on Wednesday. My spouse works afternoons into evenings, so he was present when our boy arrived home. My spouse had already dined and left his used dishes uncleaned, and when he instructed our son to clean them, our son questioned why he couldn't handle it himself, as he was the one who dirtied them. My spouse repeated the request, and he refused. In our household, the children handle dishwashing. It doesn't matter who consumed what, particularly if it's their dad who dirtied the items. My spouse agreed, cleaned his own, and terminated his mobile service. When our son inquired why, he explained that since he declined to wash the dishes, why fund a plan for a device that isn't his? Our son grumbled to me, calling it unjust, and I informed him that had he simply followed the household expectation, he'd retain full phone privileges. Now he's ignoring both of us. Am I being foolish? You are being foolish. I detest this style of child-rearing. He didn't create the clutter. He didn't consume any of the meal. He's now penalized because your indolent spouse declined to tidy after himself and insisted your son do so, then leveraged his authority to discipline him for noncompliance. Tasks should be distributed fairly. He maintains his bedroom, assists with post-family meal cleanup, helps keep shared spaces tidy, and so on. Forcing him to serve as a servant for a slothful parent teaches him that those he should trust, who hold power over him, will mistreat him and then penalize him for defending himself. Is that truly the lesson you aim to impart to your child? This isn't about guidance or education. It's about dominance. Dad can't tolerate defiance and must assert his control. He's disciplining his son because his fragile pride was hurt. Awful child-rearing. I wager he's a poor partner as well. I hope he and his wife appear here in a few years, bemoaning that their offspring despise them without cause. Ease up a bit. Yes, Dad is awful, but don't act as if the poster isn't equally involved in the mess. From their mindset alone, they're a compatible duo, particularly if it's their father who dirtied the dishes. What sort of male-dominated rubbish is that? That statement turned my stomach. You're nurturing a child who'll marry and never anticipate doing dishes in his home because that's for youngsters and females. Last weekend, I was preparing to create a photo album for my upcoming infant, and my stepdaughters, a young adolescent and a tween, being youngsters, wished to assist and browse their own albums. So we examined several, and we discovered images from my father's and their father's nuptials and betrothal. My stepdaughter inquired if I retained my gown, and I confirmed I did. She then asked if she could inherit it for her nuptials. I didn't respond immediately as she began enthusing about resembling me on her special day and similar sentiments. She continued browsing the album and questioned about my bands, and I explained they belonged to my great-grandmother, which we merely updated to suit my taste and repaired slightly. She asked if, when older, she could borrow them for her ceremony. I gently clarified that I'd prefer my biological daughter to have priority on such items and that their mother likely possesses family treasures. That saddened them. So upon returning home, I presume they informed their mom, angering her. She phoned us and expressed confusion over why some newcomer child should receive preference over her offspring. I clarified to her that I favor any biological child claiming first rights, and if my biological children decline, then it's open to others afterward, and that she ought to have items to bequeath to her kids. She stated she lacks them, or she had no ceremony, and her relatives didn't preserve such things. I responded that I couldn't assist with that. My biological children would still claim priority. Everyone's upset except my spouse, and we agreed to discuss it with them. But I still feel guilty. I wouldn't want to offer them something my biological children might desire, since it's genuinely linked to them and part of their heritage. So am I being foolish? You are being foolish. She expressed wanting to resemble you on her wedding day. That's among the most endearing things I've encountered. And you countered I'd prefer my natural daughter over you. She's a tween. So you could have postponed it indefinitely and said, that's far in the future. We can discuss it when you're grown. There's a high likelihood your biological child won't desire your wedding gown regardless. And now your stepdaughter realizes she'll forever be secondary in your affections. You must perform some reconciliation. Take her on a unique outing just for her and present her with something significant to you for her possession. She's attempting to grow nearer to you. Allow it. Yes, the poster fails to value how fortunate she was to receive that request. How harsh of her to build a connection with the kids and then dismiss them. The youngster clearly adores her and admires her. Maybe she felt anxious about the infant's arrival and sought reassurance that the poster would continue loving her. And the poster declared, "You're not my true child." It's positive that the poster avoided saying, "Certainly, dear," though my forebears did that with my mother and her two siblings from early on. Those three have engaged in fierce rivalry since their parents passed over a decade ago, because they each vowed every single item to each child separately. I'm guessing my grandparents assumed they wouldn't recall, but all three did. Parental ease turned into conflict, but they avoided facing it. It's been a family disaster. A 21-year-old man, my parents and my sibling Mary, 27, attended her master's graduation in June. I was and remain thrilled for her. We hail from an immigrant background, so achievements like this are major. Following the event, like typical families, we devoted hours to photography. All across the grounds, all via our devices. I'm not typically a picture taker, but that day I captured 100 on my phone, essentially my whole collection for the month. There was also a university-supplied photo station with a professional shooter. After standard family poses, the shooter inquired if we desired accessories. On the display were caps, fake mustaches, and small placards with descriptors. One read "Class Clown." As we hadn't done any silly shots yet, I figured it'd be amusing to include one. For background, Mary is our family's comedian. She's constantly joking, sharing humorous tales or playing tricks. Certainly it can irritate or occur untimely, but usually we appreciate it. If selecting 5 terms to define her, humorous would feature. So, to me, the placard seemed appropriate and clear, and I didn't select it maliciously. We snapped the image, and later Mary asked what I'd held. Upon viewing "Class Clown," she appeared clearly irritated and directed me to select another, so I replaced it. I can't recall if I chose a different accessory or none, but we proceeded, continued photographing, dined, and all appeared okay. Advanced to last week, September. We discussed the commencement, and she abruptly claimed I'd committed something deeply offensive. I was puzzled, but she referenced the placard. She accused me of attempting to spoil her occasion. I clarified that in our household she truly embodies the class clown, and it was intended playfully. To me, class clown essentially signifies amusing, and frankly, if it were such a horrid tag, would the institution supply it as an accessory? She insisted I erred, that the term carries a pejorative implication, that she doesn't associate with it, and since it wasn't a group shot, I was basically dubbing her a fool. I assured her I wouldn't repeat it and had no aim to distress her as it was her celebration, naturally, but even post-explanation. She remained firm that it was rude, which surprised me. I could grasp an initial misinterpretation, but not her persistence after clarification. Given her response, I suggested perhaps if she dislikes being perceived as the prankster, that's for her self-examination, as she's the one embracing that persona. We possess hundreds, perhaps over 1,000, flawless and elegant photographs from that day. This was a single playful instance among them, and I truly believe her assessment is unjust. So, am I being foolish? You are being foolish. Class clown frequently denotes the bothersome pupil who disrupts the instructor, interjects, behaves for notice, and is overall an immature, aggravating, egocentric drain on time. They prioritize spotlight over peers' learning, whether young or mature. They're seldom actually entertaining, and your interpretation differs from the norm. She likely doubts you view it as her humor at all. Nearly all loathe the class clown, unless they harbor intense hatred for the educator. If the class clown is so broadly detested, why would the university's photo station offer such a derogatory accessory? A class clown merely indicates proficiency in humor and reliably amusing classmates with excellent wit. It wouldn't be offensive. Not foolish, but this is ridiculous. I suspect there's additional context your sister isn't sharing. It appears someone uttered, or did something previously to sensitize her about the term clown or similar, assuming no mood disorder or penchant for fabricating turmoil for amusement. Ironically, she's acting utterly foolish over this. I'm a 32-year-old man, and I've labored at my father's auto repair garage for 17 years, beginning at 15. My sibling, 26, wedded the most arrogant fellow I've witnessed 2 years past, and they have a boy with a girl on the way. Since my earliest recollections, the enterprise was destined for me, and I've essentially managed operations for several years, while Dad serves as the public figure. 4 months back marked Dad's 60th, with the whole clan at our residence for festivities, including relatives and extended family, where he declared his retirement and transfer of the operation. Not to me, but to my cursed brother-in-law, who's never contributed a shift and knows zilch about it. Dad had the audacity to instruct me to orient him and impart all my knowledge. I questioned my role and potential ownership stake. He denied it. His rationale is that my brother-in-law is wedded with offspring. He desires his sole daughter secured without future concerns, and not only do I receive no portion, I'm facing a downgrade and salary reduction. Again, for years I've functioned as the leader, now his position. I was reduced to chief technician with over $15,000 less. I erupted and shouted at Dad, but he ordered me to accept it quietly. I departed and promptly began efforts. I possessed contacts in the industry and for years managed client and partner relations. I had sufficient funds to launch a competing venture, which I did. I recruited most staff from our place as they disliked my ousting and worried about similar fates. I initiated outreach to our clientele and gradually drew them over. My father and kin are enraged with me, but I'm indifferent, and my brother-in-law is clueless, causing the operation to falter. Dad emerged from retirement, getting involved hands-on with vehicles, something absent for a decade since I poached most workers and they lack funds for replacements. Last week, Dad contacted me, sounding exhausted. He pleaded for my return, stating the operation is collapsing and it's his heritage. I replied, good, I desire their suffering. I aim for this enterprise to fail and vanish. I forfeited much of my existence and personal opportunities to expand that operation on the assurance it'd become mine, repeated thousands of times with numerous unpaid months. I endured, believing it'd pay off eventually. Yet no. He bestowed it all to some conceited fool for impregnating his daughter repeatedly without consulting me. My dad grew furious, yelling, and I disconnected. My sibling has hurled every insult at me. My fresh venture exceeds projections. The sole gratitude I hold for Dad is the operational expertise he provided in managing an auto repair, enabling seamless independent start. Still, a minor portion of me regrets because this consumed Dad's life, and I recall as a child observing him launch solo after employment elsewhere. I remember his total dedication, and times he'd bring me to observe and learn, but I swiftly recall him turning awful and yielding my lifelong efforts to that arrogant jerk. Am I being foolish? Not foolish. He didn't transfer it to your sibling. He granted it to your brother-in-law. How does that secure her future? He could end the marriage tomorrow and depart with all. This is mine and your heritage, precisely. I'm carrying my heritage onward. You demonstrated to me, your son, that you owe me nothing, so I'm following suit with clients as I owe you zilch. Upon reading your father awarded 100% to your brother-in-law, I thought, the man's foolish. When they separate, she'll possess nothing. Oh well, I suppose they have nothing presently. A comparable situation befell my brother-in-law who operated his father's sandwich outlet for 25 years. The outlet was always intended for him, then abruptly his father sold to another. The upside is his father passed 5 years back, bequeathing a $10 million estate to his 3 offspring, so my brother-in-law is secure lifelong.